it's possible we're going to come back and say, hey, we've got 5 to 10 meters of 2% or more niobium along this dike. And if we do put ourselves in a position where we can say that, we're going to start directly comparing ourselves to WA1. This is very exciting. I mean, this could all happen in the next 6 months or less, so.
All right, everybody, we're back with the next big rush, and I have here CEO Pete Smith, who is going to tell us exactly what's going on with both the uranium-focused asset, Copper Mountain, down in Wyoming. I say down in Wyoming as if I were sitting in Canada, but just bear with me. And also Boxy, which is actually really exciting. It's a property in Quebec, and it is very rich in uranium, which unfortunately isn't currently mined in Quebec, but it is also apparently very rich in niobium, which is a metal that has been, I guess, newly discovered by a lot of investors, especially if they're in Australia. But before we go into any of that, Pete, welcome.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Fabi. I appreciate it. I love being on the show. So I really appreciate you having me. And yeah, hey, let's jump right into it here. We're talking about Boxy, one of our two properties. We're very lucky to be involved in both uranium and niobium right now because they're both very much in vogue. And so our Boxy property in Quebec, that's the one that we're kind of spending our time and resources on. Originally, we picked it up from a guy who was a contractor for Orano. So Orano held Boxy as a uranium prospect way back in 2011, pre-Fukushima. And of course, Fukushima happened and Orano contracted a lot of its holdings kind of globally, including Boxy. And their contractor, the guy who had been prospecting it for them, picked it up. And then we picked it up from him based really on the really high niobium samples that they had taken there. And you alluded to niobium, it's really kind of come into favor because it's used for a variety of purposes. First of all, they use it as a additive to make steel, which is highly resistant to hot and cold. Makes it anti-corrosive, stronger and lighter. It's kind of like turns it into Superman, so to speak. But it's also used as a superconductor, so it's kind of highly relevant for electronic vehicles, for example, MRI machines. And the list goes on. And so the uses for niobium are many, many-fold. And as a result, the demand for niobium has gone way up. And there's only 3 niobium mines of any consequence in the world right now. There's 2 in Brazil, and then there's one about 350 kilometers from us in Quebec called Niobec. So again, niobium has become very exciting. And so when we picked up this property, we picked it up on the strength of some very high niobium grades and just a handful of samples. What we found was that we have this highly mineralized dike that runs through the property for 14K, maybe more than 14K, and it runs right at surface. So it's very dramatic. Like you can see it, and there's nothing quite like being at the property and seeing this thing. Like you can walk along it as if you're walking along a logging road, this kind of clearly defined mineralized system. So we started essentially stripping so we could see it perfectly and sampling along this dike. We did this last summer. We did about 2 kilometers of the dike and took a bunch more samples, and we continued to get very high grades of niobium and uranium, by the way. But the niobium grades were spectacular. We had one sample that was 27%, another one that was 7%, another one that was 4, another one that was 3, and several that were kind of 2 and 1, and so on.
Okay, so this, from my understanding, is a mineralized dike, and you're taking off chip samples along the dike. This is not like the old grab sample that, could have been moved around. Like this is like part
Yes.
of the dike, correct?
Yeah, really important to note that, and thank you. Literally saw samples. So the prospector that we have doing a lot of the exploration work takes a diamond saw, cuts right into these mineralized sections of the dike, and takes chunk samples out from the saw, and so that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with samples that come from sections of the dike, not kind of shiny grab samples that he's kind of found lying around the ground here and there. And just to put it in perspective, the Neobec mine that's kind of down the road from us, they're mining niobium at grades of 0.4 to 0.5% and making great money. They're doing great. And they're mining it at depths of between 100 and 500 meters. So these guys are underground mining grades in the 0.5% range. We're finding niobium at surface, easily accessible, and again, 27%, 7%, 4%, 3%, and so on. And so obviously it's early days and these are just early samples, but it goes to show you like how exciting this thing is and where we could potentially go. And actually, if you don't mind, I'm just going to interject the story of WA1.
I was
Can
going
I
to
do that?
ask you that exactly now. Yeah, good
Okay,
timing.
great. And again, this is just another comparable that makes the Boxy project so damn exciting. WA1, some very charming Australian guys that were essentially kind of greenfield exploring a couple of years ago in Western Australia, and they found what they thought were some very interesting kind of geophysical anomalies here and there. And so they drilled them, not being sure what they were looking for, I gather, but being really interested in what's there. And uh, long story short, they've got a bit of a niobium discovery on their hands. They've got some great intercepts in the kind of 2 to 4% range. Well, they've gone from 15 cents a share to well over $10 a share in the last 2 years on the strength of this niobium discovery, which demonstrates to me like the value that the world is well aware of that niobium has. This is an element that's very, very much in demand, and that we need to have kind of local supply of. And so
I was just checking. I kept saying that they were, sitting at a market cap of 500 million and now they're at 766 million. So their story is just getting better and better.
yeah, and again, like we are early days, but it's not that early. And the reason I say that is because this summer we're going to be looking at this dike, this mineralized dike. We're going to do some backpack drilling. We're gonna do some trenching. We're going to really start to get a feeling for what is the size and consistency of this mineralized dike, and it is possible that we are going to be able to come back and report some lengthy intercepts of niobium. I mean, who knows what the results will say, but if the surface cut samples are any indication, it's possible we're going to come back and say, hey, we've got 5 to 10 meters of 2% or more niobium along this dike. And if we do put ourselves in a position where we can say that, we're going to start directly comparing ourselves to WA1. I mean, this is very exciting. I mean, this could all happen in the next 6 months or less. So anyway, that's my reason for excitement about Boxy. I'm literally coming out of my skin, waiting for the summer exploration season to start so we can find out more.
And we're talking about Rush Rare Metals being a company that's currently sitting at less than 4 million Canadian dollars market cap,
Sure.
correct?
Yeah, we're invisible. We haven't spent any money on marketing to speak of. We've been putting our money into exploration at Boxy and previously into Copper Mountain, but that's we can talk about that in a second. So we're very, very much under the radar. No one really knows about us. We're going to start trying to get the word out now because the story that we have to tell is extraordinary. And so, I think if people make this connection between Neobec and their grades, and WA1 and their story, and then they objectively look at the data that we have, I think that you can't help but get excited about our prospects. This could be a rocket ship.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm very biased. I'm on the board, and I also hold a ton of shares, probably too many, and I won't be selling it because everybody will know when I'm selling them. So so I won't be selling them for a long time, and also we have a partnership, a sponsorship deal with Rush. But here's what I'm thinking, Pete. Okay, so what comes next? You said a few things that are going to be done to the property throughout the summer. And you mentioned backpack drilling. If I'm new to the business, I don't know what in the world backpack drilling is. How does that differ from your usual diamond drill?
Well, they're handheld drills. They're very easy to operate. They're extremely cheap to operate, and you could really only use backpack drilling for surface mineralization, and so that's where um, uh, we reap the advantages of this type of system that we have at Boxy. We're very lucky in that we have this surface mineralization running in the form of a dike through the property that we can see. So, normally you're exploring for any one of a number of elements. You've got overburden and you've got targets that are kind of multiple meters below ground. That's not at all unusual. In our case, we've got this thing right at surface. And so we can do these extremely efficient exploration methods that are going to tell us a great deal about the property and potentially add a great deal of value. But again, they're going to be extremely cheap and easy to execute.
That's super exciting, and it helps that it's in Quebec because it's a mining friendly jurisdiction as well. And you can just fly over there and oversee things, et cetera, et cetera. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Let's move over to Copper Mountain really quickly. I have just read the news that came out today, actually, if I'm not mistaken, of Myriad uh, actually going out and grabbing some more land. What is that all about? And what is the deal that Rush has with Myriad?
Yeah, so Rush owns Copper Mountain, 100%. We bought it. We bought the kind of original core claims, which are it's known as the Canning deposit area. We bought them kind of before uranium started running a couple of years ago. We've added to that. We've staked all around what used to be an operating mine, a uranium mine, kind of back in the 50s and 60s, called the Arrowhead Mine. We've staked all around that. So the total area that we had was about 2,000 acres, 110 claims or so. Then again, because we're a small company with limited resources, we did a deal with Myriad Uranium to earn in to Copper Mountain. And so essentially, Myriad needs to spend $5.5 million over the next 4 years, a little less now, to earn up to 75% of the property. Rush gets a few share bonuses along the way, and we actually do get a bit of a kicker in that we share 50% of early production to a limit of $50 million worth of early production. So it's a pretty good deal for Rush. Like we keep a really good chunk of this property. Myriad needs to earn it, of course, and we do have some nice kind of bonuses and kickers along the way. The best part is we don't have to spend any money. We get to sit back and kind of watch Myriad perform, and they're a very capable group. They've got Tom Lamb is a wonderful CEO, and George Vanderwalt is a very well experienced uranium guy. So we're in good hands with those guys. The other thing that's extremely exciting about Copper Mountain is, and I've told this story to you before, but I'll tell it again. We recently uncovered a treasure trove of data, and the thing you got to remember about uranium exploration in the USA is that they were global leaders. People forget this, but kind of prior to 3 Mile Island, like prior to 1980. They were one of the biggest producers of uranium in the world. And so as a consequence, they're spending hundreds of millions in exploration in places like New Mexico, Texas, and primarily Wyoming, which was kind of the leader within the USA. So then 3 Mile Island happens, and all of that just kind of stops like a trip hammer. And because it's prior to 1980, all of this data, all of these kind of wonderful drill results and drill logs and geological reports, they're all like paper form,
They're all in a
non-digital.
Tupperware somewhere.
Yeah. You go on the internet, you can't find them. They're not on a disk somewhere. They're in a shoebox or they're in a filing cabinet. And so we knew that about Copper Mountain. We knew that there was data out there that we were going to have to try and find, and we'd be lucky to find. And we found it, Fabi. We found it. One of the local ranchers had been given the data by one of the last operators and was keeping it in his basement in boxes. And we just, again, very serendipitously, we found this out. We got access to this data, and the data is extraordinary. I mean, it's old resource estimates. It's mining plans. It's drill log results. Very substantive stuff. And so I could go on and on about how important this data is to the project, but to go back to your point about the press release, the other thing the data is allowing us to do is we know where these previous uranium occurrences are. And so we're expanding our claim area. Both Myriad and Rush are doing it together, I'll add. So everything that we're adding right now immediately becomes a part of the earn-in agreement. So they can earn up to 75% of all of the stuff that we're adding. But we're expecting to add more. There's all kinds of historical work showing uranium occurrences that are essentially a secret to everybody except for those with access to this data.
That is completely fascinating. I love how, there is an ongoing de facto uranium renaissance happening in the US, and how all of this information has just been sitting there somewhere. And, it takes somebody to go and shake enough hands and meet enough people in order to, find all of this literally buried treasure. Now, when we're talking about uranium in Wyoming, I absolutely love the jurisdiction. They're super mining friendly. They're super uranium mining friendly as well. So my guess is that we're going to get lots of positive news flow from Boxy in the summer, but also even possibly before that through Myriad about all of these discoveries. To me, it's sort of a game of not if the uranium is there, but we know that the uranium is there. It's how much and the exact grades. Now, the more that we find, all of these files and documents, the more we know where they are located as well. So it's a matter even of not just if it's there or how much there is, it's more of, okay, can we make this compliant so that we can
Sure.
go out there and either, sell this on to somebody to put it into production or put it into production. Am I getting this right?
Yeah, no, you're getting it exactly right. And Union Pacific, they spent again something near 100 million Canadian dollars on the Copper Mountain area. And so the additional staking that we're doing, the additional land that we're acquiring, for example, Knob, which just came out in the recent press release, you got to remember that this is based on data. This isn't something where someone said, oh, there might be some uranium over there. Geologically, it makes sense. You should go stake that. This is a company that had spent, tens of millions saying, hey, based on the data that we've collected and the exploration work that we've done, this area, has got uranium and that area has got uranium. And so our new staking is based on hard historical but hard data that we've got in this data treasure trove that we found.
That is super interesting. I'm like overly excited about both projects, and I'm sure that the news coming out of both is going to be super exciting throughout 2024. Pete, where can people find out more about Rush Rare Metals and at the very least add it to their watch list?
Yeah, we've got a great website, rushraremetals.com. Go and have a look at it. I think everyone likes it, and it's got a lot of great information about the company. And also myriaduranium.com, where obviously we're joined at the hip when it comes to Copper Mountain these days. And so there's great information on both websites. So I'd encourage you to go and look. And I'm here to answer any and all questions. Send me an email and join our contact list, and I'm really happy to speak to anyone who wants to learn more.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I hope to catch up with you soon about news of either project.
Sounds great, Fabi. Thanks for having me. I'll see you soon.
See you soon.